Hello everyone, this is Dalster and welcome to another video, and in today's video I will be starting the first episode of Season 5 for Dark Side of the Ring. Just to let you guys know that I will try to do Season 5 and the rest of the seasons that I still need to cover because you guys' support has really meant so much to me. I recently created a playlist for all the Dark Side of the Ring episode reviews that I have done so far, so that you guys don't have to search my entire video library. You guys have really given me so much with your views and likes, and I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time with me as we are close to 500 subscribers. I'm glad you guys love these episode reviews, and I hope you guys also love the ones that I have yet to release. I give thanks to Tati for influencing me to do these reviews because I have always been scared of the wrestling fan community, especially the Smarks, and I see you Smarks by the way, because I have read some of the comments that these Smarks leave in a lot of wrestling fans' YouTube videos. At this point, I just want to do these reviews because I think it's important that we talk about the stories of wrestlers who have put their all for us, the audience, and have made it interesting or shocking in our childhood or adult life if you just started watching wrestling as an adult recently. It's unfortunate for a lot of the wrestlers who have struggled in order to make a living, but I do the best that I can to make sure that their stories are heard and that a majority of them are not forgotten. Anyway, today's episode focuses on Earthquake, whose real name was John Tenta. I don't know much about Earthquake, but I do remember WWE putting the thing in memory of Earthquake before starting the show or while in the commercial break. So I will also learn something about Earthquake as well. I will refer to Earthquake as either John or Earthquake in case you guys get confused. John was born John Anthony Tenta Jr. in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada on June 22nd, 1963. At the age of 6, he wanted to start wrestling. His parents were also wrestling fans like him, but they didn't have a lot of money. Instead, John used items that he had access to, such as park benches, in order to get stronger and start his wrestling dream. John would later become a Canadian heavyweight champion, but the promotion he was in got shut down. He then got recruited for sumo wrestling at the age of 22, so he quit attending Louisiana University and went to go sumo wrestling in Japan. In this episode, Haku says that sumo wrestling is more underground and more physical. While he was in the sumo wrestling scene, John had won 3 tournaments and never lost. He ended up walking out as John felt like it was too much for him, as he just wanted to be a wrestler. John then went to New Japan Pro Wrestling in 1986 and became a local in Japan. While he was in Japan, he met his wife Josephine, who was from the Philippines, and managed to get her visa in order to go to Japan. It was love at first sight. John was 6'7" and Josephine was 4'11", but for Josephine, it did not matter as she loved John. Their daughter Joanna called her parents' romance a love story. Eventually, John leaves New Japan Pro Wrestling and goes to WWF, now WWE, where he made his debut in 1989. When John made his WWF debut as Earthquake, he smashed the Ultimate Warrior and became a big heel. Earthquake, as a big heel, jumped a lot and smashed his opponents. Because of being a heel, he had a feud with Hulk Hogan, who was very popular in the 80s. Earthquake got a lot of heat for his feud with Hulk. Somewhere in that time, John and Josephine got married in the Philippines and they moved to Canada. When WWF did an event with SWS, Earthquake wrestled against Koji Katao, who wasn't well known. Haku said that Katao was disrespectful and that Katao thought that he was like Bruce Lee, even though Katao was a sumo-sized wrestler. When they wrestled their first match, Katao lost and was very angry. In the second match, Katao was supposed to lose again, but decided to go against the booking. Katao gets himself disqualified and walks off, grabs a mic and calls wrestling fake and a scam. After throwing a fit, Katao walks off, and John was not happy about it as he wanted to beat up Katao. Katao then got fired from SWS. Of course he did. When John came to the US, WWF wanted him back after the Katao altercation. Earthquake was managed by Jimmy Hart and got into a storyline with Jake the Snake Roberts. In the storyline with Jake, Earthquake squashed Jake's pet snake Damien in front of Jake as he was tangled in the ring ropes. Don't worry, animal lovers. The snake was not really squashed, as the bag had women's pantyhose and hamburger meat. Supposedly, it traumatized the kids, and Jake said in this episode that it's wrestling, god damn it. In a funny segment, Earthquake comes out with these burgers and calls them Quake Burgers that were made from Damien the snake. Not true though. Vince McMahon in this segment looked really mad after finding out that the burger meat was snake meat and flicked off the plate of burgers. After the Jake the Snake storyline, Earthquake was in a tag team with Typhoon, whose real name is Red Altman, and together they were natural disasters. Both of them were huge men at the time and were wrestling against the Nasty Boys. Eventually, Natural Disasters won the tag team titles. The Natural Disasters dominated the wrestling scene in 1992. Instead of going to the parties and stuff, since they were a popular tag team, John and Fred went to hotels or motels and just talked about their home life or other things. During the WWF time, John was on the road a lot while Josephine was raising the family but was having a hard time getting used to where the family was living at. Jeff calls his mom the alpha of the house, even though she is a short woman. John would be gone for months, and he felt bad for it. His daughter Joanna looked as though she wanted to cry as she talked about her dad being gone for months. Jake said that the wrestling life on the road was brutal and that it was too much for John as he was away from his family. Jake also said that it didn't matter for Vince as his wrestlers had families while they were on the road. In an audio interview from a long time ago, John said that WWF were starting to put Natural Disasters aside as the company wanted to put new tag team talent over, as John also stated that he was growing impatient with them. Around this time, Fred had to leave as his brother-in-law just got shot and had to help the family. John's life at home was not easy as Josephine was not happy that he wasn't there all the time. In 1993, John went to WCW in order to be closer to his family. Fred also went to WCW later. Before WCW, Fred had a gimmick where he had a boombox and hit it in the head of Rocky Johnson. Once he was in WCW, Fred had this stormtrooper-looking helmet that was all glittery and was known as the Shockmaster. While the Dark Side of the Ring people behind the camera showed the wrestlers an old clip of the Shockmaster, they looked embarrassed as they watched the promo of Shockmaster's introduction. Fred said that he could not see when he was wearing the helmet and burst out of the wall, falling down so hard in an embarrassing way. Haku was uncontrollably laughing so hard that it made me laugh with him too. The guy who voiced Shockmaster was Ole Anderson, who passed away recently this year. Shockmaster's introduction was probably one of the most embarrassing promos in WCW. John was having financial issues while he was in WCW, such as moving and schedule conflicts with the wrestling shows. He was able to spend more time with his family and did karaoke with his wife on the song Endless Love, which is by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie, in case you guys want to listen to it. In WCW, he was known as Avalanche, but had another gimmick soon after as the Shark with a fin on top of his head. The audience made fun of his shark gimmick as they called him a beach whale because of his size. In 1998, John returned to WWF, but with a new gimmick called Golga, who was in the Oddities, which also had Luna Vachon. Golga had a mask and carried a huge Cartman doll. Jake said that it was humiliating for John to play such a weird gimmick. The audience wanted Earthquake, but there was no fit for John in the WWF. After leaving the WWF, John and his family struggled financially as they went bankrupt. John went to school for a year and then worked at a mall in order to financially support his family. He then did truck driving, but all of a sudden he started having blood clots in his urine. John kept it a secret from his family for a long time, and finally went to go see a doctor where they told him that he had bladder cancer. Unfortunately for John, the doctors told him that there was nothing they could do as the tumor was the size of a baseball. John F. was told by his sister, Joanna, who worked in the medical field, that bladder cancer was curable, but because John took so long to get it checked out, it had already been too late. John's kids cried when they found out that their father had bladder cancer. John F. recalled a memory when he heard his dad laughing while watching old VHS videos of himself when he wrestled. Haku cried in this episode as he was remembering the last days he had with John. John went through chemo in 2005 while his son Jeff was getting married that same year. Fred remembers John calling him and telling him that his cancer had returned. When Josephine did karaoke at her son's wedding, she sang "You Needed Me" and broke down as she and John cried together as they knew that the worst was yet to come. The cancer had unfortunately spread through John's entire body by the time Jeff was getting married. Josephine said that when the family was at the hospital saying their goodbyes to John, she told John that she and the kids will be okay. John F. said that his dad winked at him for the last time. John passed away on June 7, 2006. A couple weeks before his 43rd birthday. Months after John died, he had a grandchild. All the people who interviewed for this episode said that John was a really nice guy. Earl Hebner, who was a referee for 40 years, said that John was a good friend. Haku calls John his sumo brother. We also get to see Fred's natural disasters action figures in this episode, which I thought was pretty cool though. To this day, Josephine says that she still loves John, even though it's been almost 20 years that he's been gone. She did sing Endless Love for this episode, as I think it was their love song. Interviewers for this episode are Jake the Snake Roberts, Jeff Tenta, son of John, Joanna Tenta, daughter of John, John F. Tenta, son of John, Fumi Saito, wrestling historian, Haku, Josephine Tenta, wife of John, Earl Hebner, former wrestling referee, Fred Ottman, and Jerry Sachs. I give this episode a 10 out of 10 as it felt like a small movie. This episode was really good, very funny, but sad towards the end as John had passed away. At first I thought it was not going to be so interesting this season, but I'm glad Vice did this episode as most of their episodes are very tragic and very sad. They should do more episodes like this as some of their episodes lack some information. As for Josephine, she really loved John and I don't think she ever dated anyone after John died. I thought it was very sweet of her to express how much she loved him and sang Endless Love, as it's also one of my favorite songs. I feel bad for John as he could have been something more, but WWF probably saw him as a mid-carder. I thought it was also pretty random that they decided to put the Shockmaster in John's episode, but it was really funny though. It was a really good episode, and I did get a little emotional as cancer is very serious. I lost two of my cousins and their mom, who was my aunt, to cancer, and it's never easy seeing your family go through that. I think WWE should induct him in the Hall of Fame, as I just found out that Bray Wyatt's dad and his uncle are getting inducted, and they've been around the wrestling business for a long time. But we'll see if Earthquake does get inducted someday. Thank you guys for watching this episode, and until next time, take care of your mental health and everyone around you, and I'll do the same. Bye guys.